From the Oklahoman newsroom, this is a Varsity Update. I'm Jenny Carlson here in studio with Cameron Jordan. Cam, we are looking at some juicy matchups this week. Week 8 for the high school football season, and we're coming off a fall break with all those Thursday games. Now we've got some great Friday night lights. Let's start with the 5A matchup that's at the top of your rankings. It's the top two teams in the class.
Yeah, it is. It's number 1 McGinnis against number 2 Piedmont, and this matchup is really intriguing because with McGinnis, its only loss is to a team in Class 6A2, Del City, in the first game of the year when Del City scored on the last minute touchdown. Whereas Piedmont's only loss came to El Reno, which is same class, but it was the first week of the season, and they're also the team that knocked off Carl Albert.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a matchup of Piedmont's defense, which is one of the top ones in the state, against McGinnis's offense with TCU commit Dominic Richardson running the ball. And then they also have Brendan Walker, who's a linebacker committed to OU, but he also plays on offense and is a threat to catch the ball. He's even passed it a couple times this year and can run the ball as well. It's going to be a really intriguing matchup between those top two teams just to see, one, if Piedmont can continue its wild streak of just playing outstanding this year under first-year coach Jeff Hall, or if McGinnis is just going to roll behind its offense with Richardson running the ball.
I bet the environment will be fantastic too. Going to Piedmont, McGinnis fans travel pretty well.
Oh yeah.
I bet it's going to be a really fun game. Not to be outdone, 6A1 says, look at us a little bit too. Jenks and Norman. Jenks has to come over to Norman. That's a pretty heavyweight matchup as well.
Yeah, and this is going to be an interesting test for Jenks. So we talked a few weeks ago about when Norman went to, for Norman. We talked a few weeks ago when Norman went to Broken Arrow. We said we're going to find out how good this Norman team is. They scored the first touchdown, but then Broken Arrow kind of took over, scored 5 straight scores, and won that game by 3 touchdowns. But Norman has another chance this week, especially at home, to really showcase that it can hang with teams from the east side of the state against a Jenks squad that now it's 4-3. Its schedule was really tough at the beginning of the year. I mean, if you look at the teams they lost to, they're all really strong opponents. But Norman has a chance this week. If its offense can move the ball well, not turn it over, has a chance to possibly pull an upset against an East Power. But then, kind of like you said, 6A1 is just loaded this week. A bunch of really important district matchups. If you go to Westmore, Edmond, Santa Fe, that's really important. Westmore didn't get into the playoffs last year, but they're 6-1 this year. They're rolling. Edmond, Santa Fe is coming off a huge win at Broken Arrow last week. So the winner of that one, they're both 3-1 in district, is really going to position itself to get into the playoffs, because in that district, like we said, you have Broken Arrow, you also have Jenks, and you also have Norman. So really those 5 teams are fighting for 4 spots. Then you got to go to the other 6A1 district, and you have Putnam North and Moore facing off. When those two teams as well, 3-1 in district, you also have Owasso and Tulsa Union in that district. Both Putnam North and Moore both lost to Tulsa Union in recent weeks. The winner of that matchup is really going to position itself for possibly home field, maybe the 2nd seed, but really just to even get into the playoffs as a 3rd or 4th seed, because as well you have Mustang in that district. Again, both of these you have 5 teams for 4 spots, and Mustang faces number 1 Owasso this week, and that's an interesting matchup because you have the Blankenship cousins facing off for the first time. Bill Blankenship at Owasso, and then Lee Blankenship at Mustang. Yeah. So that's a really interesting matchup.
Well, and if people over here want to see those east side teams, you mentioned Jenks coming over, but Owasso has to come to Mustang. Again, I imagine that's going to be, that's the type of matchup Mustang has really been looking to have on their home field for a while, I would think.
Oh yeah, and earlier this year, Mustang went up to Tulsa Union and knocked off the Redskins, and so they've proven that they can beat those teams from the east side of the state. So now they get to have the best team in the state this year come over to Mustang High School and try to beat them. It's going to be difficult to do that because Owasso's been rolling this year. They have Kansas commit Deuce Mayberry, who's a defensive back. They also have Isaiah Jacobs, who's a running back, who he's releasing his top 5 schools on Friday, but he has offers from the likes of Ohio State, Michigan. I mean, you kind of get the path that he's on. Yeah. Supremely talented team. It's going to be a really difficult matchup for Mustang, but it's also going to be a really difficult matchup for Owasso because Mustang has shown that it can handle any of those teams from that side.
All right. Games back on Friday this week. Everybody back to normal after last week, all those Thursday games. Fall break's over. We've got some great games, lots to go out to see. We'll cover a ton of it, so be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at oklahoman.com and every day in the Oklahoman.